Hello, I'm Mad Uncle Morgan, and today we're talking about a subject that none of us want to talk about. And that is the accusation that the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn is a bunch of neo-Nazis. How this accusation came into play has three parts. Okay, there's three parts to this accusation. First part was a few years ago, two different parties trademarked the name Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. The reason for this was it became the way all of us referred to the tradition. It's not the most accurate term for what we're actually doing. Most of us would probably be more true to what we're actually doing if we referred to the system as Stella Matina or Rewa instead of Golden Dawn. Golden Dawn itself historically was far more Masonic than the current system. The current system basically is magical, and all the Golden Dawn orders teach magic. You just may not realize it in the earlier stages. But as a result of there being a business reason to trademark the name Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, this led to a court battle. On one side was a person who was trying to turn Golden Dawn into a business, and on the other side was a person trying to protect the name for use for everybody in the tradition. The lawsuit was accompanied by a flame war. And the flame war seems, from where I sit, to have developed purely on the one side. And one of the common accusations was the fact that, these leaders were neo-Nazis. Outside of one party, I'm not seeing any evidence that the upper echelon are a bunch of neo-Nazis. And as for the one there is evidence, I would probably go out and say that they're fascist rather than neo-Nazi. I don't think they're a true neo-Nazi. I think they're fascist. And so it goes. But between comments on discussion boards and there are a whole bunch of posts on one blog of a major Golden Dawn leader, or they consider themselves major. I'm not really sure I would classify them major in terms of how much they've actually published. There will come the day when I will have officially published more than this person. And I am not a major leader. Hell, I'm not a leader at all. But yeah, so there's a whole blog with a whole bunch of posts saying there's a conspiracy, and behind this conspiracy are neo-Nazis trying to destroy the Golden Dawn. Which are not true accusations. For the most part, the tradition wants to be left alone in peace to do its thing. besides the Flame War, were anonymous blog sites and websites that basically painted everybody in a leadership position. If you were a major leadership person, you got painted as a neo-Nazi. And these sites, nobody can take them down because they're abandoned, but only the original owner can take them down. It's something about Blogger rules that says that only the original owner can take them down. And an abandoned site, basically, if you do not control the email that the site's linked to, you can't edit it. So if you abandon that site and the email 2 years ago and no longer have that email address, you can't take it down. And Blogger can't take it down unless you can make a copyright claim or another legal claim to get it taken down. So there's these sites that exist. Now, used to be the neo-Nazi results in the Google search wouldn't be that high, but a few years ago, the second part of the problem we're discussing came into play, which is there's a Greek political party which has the name, I cannot pronounce this name. I have no clue how to say that name. And most journalists don't either, which is why they translate the name into Golden Dawn. And so the media refers to this Greek political party as Golden Dawn, rather than this name. Because of that, nowadays, the Google results, when you punch in Golden Dawn, you get, well, you basically get the first 10 pages being news about the Greek political party, rather than the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And there are people who come into the Golden Dawn forums believing that the Hermetic Golden Dawn is the neo-Nazi party. And they're there to, talk bad about immigration and other races and preach violence. And they're drastically disappointed when they run into the Hermetic Golden Dawn and find out that we're not that. Now, there has been a myth that that political party takes its inspiration from the esoteric tradition. But that's a recent myth. It's not the original inspiration. The original inspiration for the Greek political party is Adolf Hitler and the Nazis. Some people are just fascists. So, we have that problem going on. And basically, that's what this video is about. The Hermetic Golden Dawn has no connection to this. None. Unless, a fascist member supports this party and is basically in a position where they can't get expelled. Now, there's a third part to this problem. Okay? Third part, which is this book, The Morning of the Magicians. This book was printed in the 60s. Part of its purpose is to prove that the Nazis were a special evil, rather than just a normal evil, okay? And in this book, written by two French people, there's a theory that the secret chiefs of Golden Dawn are the same as the Supermen of Adolf Hitler's philosophy. So, we have been royally insulted by Louis Prowels and Jacques Berger. I only speak two languages, English and bad English. So yes, I'm going to mutilate the names. But here's the Mather quote he uses. And this is basically Mather. This is a cherry-picked version of the manifesto that Mather sent to members of the Second Order in 1896 when they were on the verge of rebelling against him. Quote, "As to the secret chiefs with whom I'm in touch and from whom I've received the wisdom of the Second Order, which I communicated to you, I can tell you nothing. I do not even know their early names, and I have very seldom seen them in their physical bodies. They used to meet me physically at a time and place fixed in advance. For my part, I believe they're human beings living on this earth, possessed of terrible and supernatural powers. My physical encounters with them have shown me how difficult it is for a mortal, however advanced, to support their presence. I do not mean that during my rare meetings with them, I experienced the same feeling of intense physical depression that accompanies the loss of magnetism. On the contrary, I felt I was in contact with a force so terrible that I could only compare it to the shock one would receive from being near a flash of lightning during a great thunderstorm, experiencing at the same time great difficulty in breathing. The nervous prostration I spoke of was accompanied by cold sweats and bleeding from the nose, mouth, and sometimes the ears." Unquote. Right after this paragraph, they go directly into Hitler and his Superman. And Hitler's talking to a follower of his, Retchen, the governor Datra. Again, I only speak English and bad English. Of course, I'm going to make hash of the German. And Hitler's talking about accelerating nature. And then Hitler goes to his supporter, quote, "The new man is living among us now. He is here. Isn't that enough for you? I will tell you a secret. I have seen the new man. He is intrepid and cruel. I was afraid of him." Unquote. Now, this new man may be an idealized model in Hitler's brain. You know, he talked about the upcoming Superman that his system was going to create. And I think this is actually his ideal archetype for that new society. But the authors go in and describe a nightmare that Hitler relates, that Hitler supposedly had. A nightmare, by the way, that I'm not seeing any other evidence for other than the statements in this book. And Hitler wakes up one night and, you know, he's screaming and, you know, quote, there, over in the corner. He is there. You know, unquote. And then the authors, in one of those, "Oh, we're not really saying this, but we want you to think it" modes, say, quote, we leave it to the reader to compare the statement of Mathers, head of a small neo-pagan society at the end of the 19th century, and the utterance of a man who, at the time Retsina recorded him, was preparing to launch the world into an adventure would cause the death of 20 million men. We beg him not to ignore this comparison and the lesson to be drawn from it, on the grounds that Golden Dawn and Nazism, in the eyes of a reasonable historian, have nothing in common. The historian may be reasonable, the history is not. These two men shared the same beliefs, their fundamental experiences were the same, and they were guided by the same force. They belonged to the same trend of thought and to the same religion. And so, we end up with this set of quotes being used by people who support the idea that the Hermetic Golden Dawn, an esoteric order founded in 1888 by Freemasons, is actually a forerunner of the Nazi Party, and therefore are still sympathetic to the Nazis today. And so, we have three fatal problems here. We have the Flame War wreckage that's scattered all over the place, if you look hard enough, deep in the messages and forums. That's all the result of a nasty trademark lawsuit. We have the modern political party in Greece, which name I cannot pronounce, which journalists just translated into Golden Dawn because it's so much easier than trying to remember how to spell this and to say this. And we have the source of a belief system among conspiracy theorists from a book that's on the equivalent of Chariot of the Gods. And so, we end up with people walking into Golden Dawn today, the esoteric system, believing that we're political and that we should support their racist problems. And then they're surprised when we kick them out. Now, final question is, are there secret Nazis in Golden Dawn? Well, you know, there are a few fascists, you know, in political thought. I'm not sure they're neo-Nazis. You know, I've seen their Facebook page, their wall, the links they're sharing, how much they hate Muslim immigrants and stuff. So, yeah, I think there's some fascists, but I'm not sure they're Nazis. You know, there's kind of a, you know, there's kind of there. I know that my particular lodge, when it's active, is extremely anti-Nazi. It would be one of the guaranteed to get you expelled if we actually allowed you in the first place charges. And for the most part, I think out of the big four, three of them would definitely kick you out at that point. The fourth one, I'm not so sure about because I've seen, you know, I've seen the fascism those, so you know, it worries me. But yeah, for all general purposes, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, tradition of, is not neo-Nazi. And if that disappoints you, then you shouldn't be a member either. Have a good day.